A very good afternoon. Today is indeed a historic day for LGBT inclusion in India as we are launching the first comprehensive benchmarking tool for organizations to assess their work for LGBT inclusion. Data and metrics do play a key role in progress, and the ability to measure and take stock helps us course correct and also propels us in the right direction. It has been a conversation which started 3 years ago with Lynn from Stonewall, and today we are witnessing the realization of that dream. And it is a phenomenal partnership with between KSF, Pride Circle, Stonewall to make Ivy a reality, and we're really proud to have FICCI as our industry partner. Inclusion at workplace takes time, persistence, and consistency, and the going does get tough at times, but the end goal is always worth it. And even during the COVID times, the pandemic times, we did push ourselves to ensure that we still do meet the timelines and we still have a wonderful IV. So thank you all for joining us and being so supportive and being a part of it. A very warm welcome. A few ground rules before we get started. Please be on mute throughout the session. If you have any question, use the chat box. Also wanted to reiterate that this is the launch event of Ivy. So there have been multiple conversations in the past through webinars and roundtables where we have covered aspects of what Ivy is, how who can participate, and all those details. We'd be happy to share the links of those recordings in the chat box, and you can always reach out to us for more questions. You can always write to us for this. So today's conversation is primarily around the launch. Uh, so I now invite Keshav Suri, Executive Director of LaLiT Suri Hospitality Group and founder of KSF, to say a few words. Over to you, Keshav.
Thank you so much, Ram. Thank you for the kind introduction. Namaskar to everyone. I'm just so happy that all of you have joined really for this queerly fabulous event. It's almost 2 years now since the reading down of Section 377, and which gave us the queer freedom in India. And it's really a proud moment for us on this call to bring you India's Workplace Equality Index. So much has happened, in these 2 years when I filed the petition for the reading down to today. And it's happened at such a record speed that it goes to show that really there is a hunger and there is a need for workplace equality index for the LGBTQIA plus community in India. Even during the pandemic, I think the pandemic has sort of taught us how important creating safe spaces at the workspace and even at homes for our community. And so I really, it's a very sort of proud moment for us, but this could have not happened without the unwavering support of our industry partner, which is FICCI, and especially Mr. Daley Chinoy, who 2 years ago when I launched the Keshav Suri Foundation, we had FICCI on board as partners, and Chenoy at the event turned around and said that he wants to give us his full support to make LGBTQI inclusion a reality at every workspace in India. And I think he's over-delivered in his promises, especially in the time of the pandemic. I think that it's completely unheard of that an industry body has taken such an active role in making sure that queer voices are heard, be it with representation, be it with its members, be it with the various webinars. And within his team, he's got superstars like Ms. Jyoti Vig and Bavleen and Uma, who have sort of unwaveringly given their support to this, and without question said that, no, we are going to definitely be a part of this from part of our diversity and inclusion task force, and as well as done so many a certification program on diversity, equity, and inclusion, the first time again in Indian industry body that is actually doing our whole training for 8 weeks on diversity, equity, and inclusion, be it for gender, be it for empowering people with disabilities, and as well as the LGBTQIA plus community. I also really have to thank Stonewall UK for always being such a beacon of and a strong leader for making diversity and inclusion, a workplace reality for the queer community. It's always been a dream of mine to have worked with the Stonewall UK. And I have to say that, it's been a conversation now for almost 3 years. And I really, have to give my gratitude to Nancy, who is the CEO of Stonewall UK, for trusting the Keshav Suri Foundation Pride Circle to make IWEI a reality. This would not have been possible without the hard work of Ram and Richa, who have Ram from Pride Circle and Richa who from Team LaLiT as well as Team KSF, who have painstakingly, during the pandemic, worked for nothing but the greater good of LGBTQI inclusion and making this dream a reality. It was just an idea that I had, but really it's the team and all the people that have sort of made this possible. And, I would really like to say that I'm hopeful that the index will not just remain a sort of rank chart, but will enable sharing and learning best practices for continuing improvement at the workplace for all of us queer folk. And with that, I'd like to not take too much of your time and ramble on. I'd like to pass it on to Nancy and just wish everyone a really, happy anniversary for queer freedom in India. And hoping that this reality happens soon, where all of us are equal. So Nancy, over to you.
Thank you so much for that. That's an incredible introduction to have to follow. So it's wonderful to be with you all today, having the opportunity to launch the India Workplace Equality Index with our partners, KSF and Pride Circle. And I want to really say that I believe, and we believe at Stonewall, that this program has the potential to transform workplaces across India. And we're very honoured to be able to play this role in making the index a reality. So at Stonewall, we believe that lesbian, gay, bi and trans people should be accepted without exception. And in the 30 years since we were founded, we've led the fight here in the UK to equalise the age of consent, to make it possible for LGBT people to marry, to start families, and to ensure LGBT plus people are protected from hate crime and hate speech, and to make sure our trans siblings are recognised legally for who we are. And today we work to protect and extend those rights and to partner with NGOs all around the world, supporting them in their own fight for LGBT plus communities to be accepted without exception. And for decades now, alongside that legal advocacy work, we've been working to transform institutions, building open and accepting cultures and making sure that everyone understands the benefits of LGBT inclusion. And at the heart of that work, that transformation program, has been our work in partnership with employers, including developing groundbreaking UK and global workplace equality indexes that are really focused on unlocking the power of inclusive organisations. So we all know, and I think everybody on this call will know, that the business case for LGBT plus inclusion in the workplace is really clear, from being able to recruit more diverse talent, retain that talent and support people to reach their very fullest potential. We know that people perform better when they can be themselves. And in fact, for many LGBT plus people around the world, the workplace is the only place in their lives where they can live freely and without fear. We also know from our work with companies around the world that LGBT inclusion work, which is often seen as being at the cutting edge of diversity and inclusion practice, can really greatly enhance an employer brand and reputation. Companies that are known for their support of the LGBT community are viewed globally as being more modern, more progressive, and more inclusive by their partners, by employees, and by customers. And this case for LGBT inclusion is more established now than ever. With the launch of the UN Business Standards in 2017, it's become enshrined really within the international system and increasingly expected within global business and human rights communities. For me and for us, the most important thing of all is that the impact of that LGBT plus inclusive workplace sends powerful ripples through society. As more employers champion LGBT plus inclusion, it becomes the norm for industries, but also for society as large. Every employee who learns more about LGBT plus identities and becomes more accepting transfers that allyship to other parts of their life. They will take that support into their communities and into their homes, and this is how progressive change happens. We believe that workplace equality indexes, like the one we're here launching today, are an absolutely key tool for driving that change. This model for driving best practice in LGBT inclusion is both well established and evidence-based. From its launch in 2005, the Workplace Equality Index has grown year on year, now attracts over 500 participating organisations here in the UK. Over the last 6 years, we've also been able to run a global version of the same tool, the Global Workplace Equality Index. And we're now working with more than 250 multinational employers to improve their practice at the system level across all of the jurisdictions they operate in. Our approach is to work with employers where they're at, whether it's taking their first steps towards LGBT plus inclusion or doing industry-leading work. We provide constructive feedback, advice and guidance, privately and confidentially, to support organisations that are on that LGBT plus inclusion journey. Our annual data gathering through the indexes has allowed us to track collective progress over time and identify and replicate good practice across and between industries. And through all of that work, we know that workplace equality indexes are highly effective tools for advancing LGBT plus inclusion. And that's why I'm so excited to be here today, launching India WEI with the Keshav Suri Foundation and Pride Circle. We believe that as this index builds here in India, more and more employers will roll out inclusive policies, increase their awareness of LGBT plus identities, and support LGBT plus colleagues, partners, and customers to engage and to thrive. And more workplaces, communities, and homes will become places where LGBT plus people can be accepted without exceptions. Thank you for having me here today, and I'm really looking forward to the conversations as we go forward through the seminar.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you. May I request Mr. Daley Chinoy to please address?
Thank you. Nancy, Keshav, and Ram, I think very good afternoon and namaskar. I think this is something with which the namaskar greeting will be India's contribution to controlling COVID in the future. You've seen global leaders also greet each other with namaskar. A very special welcome on this occasion. 6/11 is just 3 days from today, and it's, as both Keshav mentioned, that it's the second anniversary of the historic Supreme Court judgment. For me, it's a delight and a pleasure to be here on the launch of this IWEI. Two dates: 18th November 19, when we launched the inclusion report, that was physically in the FICCI meeting. Then 19th December 19, which was the event in the LaLiT there, and then I think today, which is 3rd September 2020. I think one thing is very, very clear. While judicial reforms may create an enabling platform, it is for organizations such as those on this call to make necessary and, most importantly, collaborative efforts to make a tangible impact and to ensure what was intended and actually what was fought for by people who would like to be included and granted by the judiciary actually takes place and finds traction on the ground. In that context, the first report on inclusion actually very clearly spelled out the benefits for inclusion and the return on the bottom line, a greater international acceptance. And there are many people who are present on that who are on the call today. But the next step is really, and you've heard from Nancy about the Indian Workplace Quality Index for LGBTQ plus inclusion, I think is the next step in taking this further and creating a kind of benchmark. It is often said, what you can't measure, you can't actually deliver. So in this context, this index is a very good step, and I must congratulate the Keshav Suri Foundation, Stonewall UK, and Pride Circle for getting this unique assessment framework to India. And I must thank you really for allowing FICCI to be an industry partner in this initiative. As you heard, we have been supporting the cause of inclusion, which is one of the key agendas of a task force, which actually was set up on the 19th of December 2019, and it is mentored by Dr. Suri, and we is co-chaired by Mr. Keshav Suri, who actually opened today's discussion. I think led by Jyoti, Uma, and Bavleen and an entire team, FICCI has been spearheading various endeavors, including consultative sessions with the key stakeholders, policymakers, and corporates to bring to the table the voice of the LGBTQI community. We've also started capacity building programs for the D&I professionals, and starting 2 days from now, we are actually launching this certification program on diversity, equity, and inclusion for the D&I professionals and other aspiring candidates who are keen to enter this space. As mentioned, this whole program will be conducted through 9 modules focused towards developing a conceptual understanding of the prevalence of diversity in the global workplaces, criticality of equity and inclusion in organizational growth and business impact. You know, one thing I would actually like to commend the Keshav Suri Foundation and the organization was that in the period of the lockdown, a lot of significant work was done by the foundation and by the LaLiT hotels to actually address a lot of the community who were in distress and to ensure that they were adequately provided for. They had a kind of a shoulder to lean on and a ear to listen on. And I think whenever the history of this pandemic will be written and it will be reviewed, this contribution that they made is actually will be a significant part of the whole, whole attempt to address issues in this space. We are also encouraging corporates to foster an inclusive work strategy in the respective enterprises with a non-discriminatory approach at all levels, such as recruitments, promotions, procurement practices, supply chain management, and even facilitating livelihood opportunities for the LGBTQ+. Time and again, various studies have proven that inclusion leads to higher economic benefits, and LGBTQ inclusive companies tend to perform better and survive and thrive through any crisis in a more effective manner. And therefore, the negative is non-inclusion will actually result in terms of lost economic opportunity, and the cost of exclusion may actually turn out to be greater than the benefits on inclusion. Many corporates, especially the large companies, have started undertaking several efforts. Many of the leaders of those companies are actually on this call, and many companies are developing equitable HR policies, offering special benefits of setting up employee resource groups. Yet, a lot needs to be done to make the inclusion and get people really feel IWEI toolkit will act as a catalyst, will create a seed of positivity, and further encourage corporates to adopt best practices towards getting more diverse and being more inclusive. As India Inc. gets ready to be more inclusive for LGBTQI people, on behalf of FICCI, we would like to just once again reiterate that we stand committed to spearhead and partner focused endeavors in this area. So we stop talking of inclusion and it actually becomes mainstream. So thank you all for this opportunity once again, and keep well and keep safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chenoy, and thank you, Nancy and Keshav. Pride Circle is committed to advancing LGBT inclusion in the workplace, and we have continued to push the needle through our various innovative programs like RISE, which is India's first LGBT job fair, conference and marketplace, which we hosted at the LaLiT Bangalore, 12th of July last year, and rallying global allies through the 21 Days Ally Challenge, and commitment to skill building through Road to Rise program. We're doing a series of 25 skill building workshops for the LGBTQ talent pool for the month of September and October, and we're doing a hackathon in November. IWEI is important to us and it's very close to my heart because I really believe it's a transformational tool for LGBT inclusion in India Inc. 50 companies and counting have signed up so far. And not only does it provide a framework to corporate India to base their initiative on what we can do and progress our work for LGBT inclusion, but it also provides a friendly competition to collectively raise the bar higher. The LGBT community also benefits because they get a definitive benchmark to assess an organization's LGBT plus friendliness through their IWEI rating. So this is really historic, and I'm really feeling proud to be a part of it and enabling it. Today is more about the logistics. I'm going to go to the next steps and how to submit. Thank you. So IWEI would have 9 sections: policies, benefits, employee lifecycle, employee resource groups, allies, role models, senior leadership, monitoring, procurement, community engagement, and additional work. More about these sections will be covered by Vicky and Richa in a bit. Next slide, please. Important to note that the timeline, so we're launching it today and the submissions will close on 15th of October. They're a good 6 weeks window to complete the submissions. The results will be launched in December. I will now like to provide you a walkthrough of what the website looks like and how can you go ahead and submit. So everything you need to know about IWEI is on the website. If you click on learn more, you'll be directed to the PowerPoint presentation, which covers other areas about who can participate, more details about IWEI, so and 10 reasons why to participate. We also did a webinar earlier, which covers all these topics in detail. So you can access the recording in the About IWEI tab. The timelines are mentioned here. There's the detailed FAQ document. When you click on download here, you'll be able to see the FAQs. Now the FAQ cover all the aspects about how to create your registration. And step-by-step process about the various fields in the registration form. And I'm going to take you through this in a bit in the actual form. This is what the IWEI form would look like, which is 9 sections. And after you complete it, and you can independently save every single section as a draft till the time you are ready to submit. And for the final submissions, you'll need to hit the submit button. So you can read the FAQ. It has details about the whole process. Now over to the registration form. Now you go to the main website, click on register, create a company account. Once you click on this link, you will be directed to the registration form. So for a company, a single registration is allowed, 1 registration per organization. So you're free to share your registration credentials with your colleagues who would need to probably fill different parts of the survey. Multiple people from the same organization can access the form and independently save different sections of the survey at the same time. And in case, so other important field is whether as an organization you would like to participate anonymously or with your name. So please fill that. Once you have created your registration, allow us a window of 24 hours to activate your account. Once your account is activated, you can then access the form and go ahead and fill it. So once you've created the registration form, then you can come back. And this is the survey participation tab. You click on login. I just scroll it up so you can see it clearly. Login. When you click on login, it will take you to this page. And here you can log in. So once you log in, your name would show up here and your organization's name would be here. You can scroll through sections independently and you can fill the various fields here. So these are the various questions and the whole process. There's a guidance associated with every single question. So it's pretty self-descriptive, but at any point of time you feel you need support, feel free to reach out to us. And once you've completed all these sections, you can go ahead and, so one is you can independently save. Every section has a save draft option. So you can independently, different people in your team can work on different sections and save drafts independently till you're ready to make a final submissions before 15th of October. And this is how you submit your answers. And once you've submitted, you will not be able to edit. So please do double check before you submit. Any questions you can put in the chat box and you can always reach out to us throughout the process. and we are here to help you.
Thanks so much. I'm so excited to be part of launching the index criteria today. I'm going to just give you a brief overview of some of the questions in each section, so that you've got an understanding of the types of questions you'll be asked and the types of evidence that we'll be asking you to share as part of your submission. So there are 9 sections, as Ram covered earlier. All of these sections we have seen be really well received as part of the UK Workplace Equality Index, and they all are part of an integral approach to inclusion in the workplace for LGBT people and allies. So section 1 is always for us based on policy. Policy is the foundation of any organisation, and we know that particularly in this context, having a policy on paper that commits to an approach that supports and champions anti-discrimination towards LGBT people is the first thing that enables people to feel like they're working in an inclusive environment. So we'll ask you to share examples of your policy that really clearly articulates that your organisation does not tolerate discrimination towards LGBT people in the workplace. We ask some additional questions around specific policy provision towards trans people, which includes notes on bathrooms and facilities use, encourages neutral dress codes, and includes some language for people on the most appropriate language to use in the workplace. With that as well, we also ask whether you're developing any transitioning at work guidance to support people who are transitioning in the workplace, and also to support their managers and colleagues as well in understanding what their experience might look and feel like at work. We ask some questions around the extensions of your healthcare provisions to make sure they're inclusive of your same-sex or people's same-sex partners and trans people. And then the last part of that section is to make sure that if you have these brilliant policies in the workplace, that you are able to communicate them to all of your colleagues. So we want to see examples of how you celebrate and champion your inclusive policies and make them available to everybody in your workplace. Section 2 is about the employee life cycle, and this really looks at start to finish for somebody's journey within your organisation if they identify as LGBT. So we ask whether you use different initiatives to attract diverse talent towards your workplace. So it might be through attending or working with LGBT job fairs, or including LGBT inclusive language within your recruitment packs and pages on your website. We want to make sure that once people are in your organisation, they're working with people that really understand the value of diversity and inclusion. So we ask about the different training that you offer to different people in your organisation, and to help them understand equality and diversity and what that might mean from an LGBT perspective. So the training that a leader might receive might be very specific around the business approach to diversity, and hiring teams need specific training around removing bias in the recruitment process. We want to make sure that you're actively celebrating LGBT diversity throughout the year, celebrating key events in the LGBT calendar, and making sure that your language is always inclusive in all of your internal comms. And we also want to make sure that as people progress through your organisation, they have opportunities to engage in different career development opportunities and aren't excluded from any of those opportunities because of sexual orientations, of having allies in the workplace. We want to make sure that those allies, where possible and where comfortable, are visible in sharing their commitment to LGBT equality. And if you do have LGBT people in the workplace that are open about their LGBT identity, we should always be exploring ways to support them to be role models to other colleagues and share their stories if they feel that they're able to at work. Section 5 is around the role of senior leadership. So we've seen from working with organisations over the last 15, 16 years that really it's that permission from the top of any organisation that enables activity to grow throughout the business. So when your senior leader is vocal in championing LGBT equality, it gives everybody else the opportunity to get involved as well. So we want to make sure that the first step for any business is to support leaders to develop their understanding of LGBT inclusion at work. So you might show us examples of where you've provided leaders with educational resources or webinar programs to help their understanding. And we want to make sure that leaders are actively engaging with diversity events and LGBT initiatives from the very top. So they might attend an LGBT resource group event, but they also might be key to forming the LGBT inclusion strategy, or they might want to share their own blog or thoughts or communication around why they think LGBT inclusion is important for the organisation or business. And we want to make sure that it's not just one leader that has that responsibility, but it's leaders at all levels. So not just the very top and the board and directors, but also middle managers too, and that they have the same opportunities to learn and understand and engage. So we ask for examples of how you've supported those leaders to do that within the criteria. Section 6 is on monitoring. So we heard your feedback that for a lot of you, the route to collecting data on the diversity of your workforce is through self-ID. So we ask whether you've got a system in place to enable people to anonymously declare their sexual orientation and gender identity in a safe way that wouldn't in any way connect them to their name or profile within the organisation. We're asking for data beyond the gender binary, so to include non-binary and trans colleagues. And we want to make sure that you're communicating the reasons why you're collecting that data and what people can be expected to be done with that data. We've seen that it takes a long time for people to trust their employer to share that information. So if you're able to share some communications that outline the confidentiality approach that you take to data collection and the reasons why you want to collect that data and how it might support a more diverse workforce, you're much more likely to get a higher response rate. So we want to see examples of you sharing that message with your workplace. And then finally, within that section, that data is only good for you if you use it to understand the experience of your staff. So we're asking whether you correlate the data that you collect on LGBT diversity and matching it to staff satisfaction to see if there are any patterns or trends that you can pull out from that data, which would help you shape your activities around inclusion. Section 7 is on procurement or supply chain. So for lots of organisations, their supply chain in some way represent their business, and you want your suppliers to share the same values that you have and to make sure that they're demonstrating them too. So we ask 3 separate areas. One is around the pre-tender process. So before you work with an organisation, how are you training your own staff on how to select who they're working with using some diversity credentials? So is it part of the process to ask questions to potential suppliers around diversity? And are you making sure that they also share anti-discrimination policies within their organisation? You wouldn't want suppliers that actively discriminate when you're telling your own staff that that's not the approach that you take. We want to see you collaborating with your suppliers. For lots of organisations, their suppliers don't have the same initiatives or ideas or opportunities to engage in LGBT diversity. So there might be a chance for you to share some events that you've got coming up, or work together on some fundraising or volunteering within the LGBT community. And that's a real good way of strengthening your supplier relationships. And then the last area is around supplier diversity. So we're interested to know whether you've got any initiatives that support supplier diversity programs and encourage you to work with LGBT-owned businesses. And if you do have that, we'd love to hear about that through your submission. Section 8 is around community engagement. So this is the external work that your organisation is doing to demonstrate externally your support for LGBT communities. So a really simple way for organisations to do that perhaps is through social media, to show your commitment at times throughout the year, perhaps matched with Pride events, or any other initiatives that you might be involved in, to say that this organisation supports LGBT equality, and that it's at the very heart of your business. And social media is a great way for you to do that. We want to see you actively engaging and supporting with LGBT community groups. And supporting doesn't have to be financial. Supporting can be giving a small LGBT group a meeting room once a month to hold their events or meetings in a safe space that they might not otherwise have. And is there an opportunity for you to work on collaborative projects? So to work with a local organisation to produce a different level of support for the people that they service. And then section 9 is around any additional work. So if we haven't asked you enough questions already, there's an opportunity for you to share anything else that you might be doing to improve the working environment for LGBT people within your organisation. So that's a really brief overview of the criteria. I really want to stress that we are not expecting an organisation to be able to answer all of the questions in the first year, but you can very much use this as a framework for your activity over the coming years. And we're really keen to hear what you've been doing or what might be in the planning. So please input all of that information and share all of the evidence which you'll be prompted to add in as through part of your submission. So once you have completed your submission and we've gone through the marking process, you have the opportunity for feedback. So as I think Ram has highlighted in previous webinars, there are 2 options for feedback. The first one is free for every organisation participating, and this just gives you a high-level overview of your score against the full mark. So you'll see the score that you were awarded against what was possible to be awarded across the 9 sections that we're working in. The second option is for detailed feedback. So there's a cost associated with this, but it gives you much more than just your score. So you've got a detailed breakdown of your scores against the averages and the top employers, so you can see just how far you might be away from that top level of gold employer status. But we're also then able to provide you with really clear feedback on the parts of your submissions that were strong, the parts of your submissions that might need developing. And we can share some examples of best practice from what we've seen through this process and give you ideas of what some other anonymous organisations might be doing. So that's an hour-long consultation, really detailed, and helps you provide an action plan for the coming year when hopefully you come to do this again with much more activity to share with us in the next year. Richa, shall I pass to you for questions?
Thank you, Nikki. So thank you, Nikki, for that overview. I just want to reiterate and a disclaimer here that there is some, a hesitation and apprehension from companies that this is the first year and all of this looks very complicated. I want to reassure you that nobody is going to get all the questions absolutely spot on, right? This is the first year, and the objective here is to shine the light on all the areas that are important for LGBT inclusion in the workplace. And of course, we'll be there along the way to help you wherever you get stuck or you have a difficulty in answering some question. And again, your company, if you feel that you haven't really done much in LGBTQ inclusion, your company can choose to participate in a confidential manner. You may not want to publish your results publicly. So that is always an option. So I encourage everyone, whether you're an ace, an expert, somewhere in the middle, or just starting out, please do participate. So we're now open for questions, and I can see that a lot of you have posted on the chat. Thank you very much. So company scores will be published anywhere. So like I said, we have 3 ranks, 3 bands, gold, silver, and bronze. And that is where the buckets, those are the 3 buckets. If your company chooses to participate in a confidential manner, then that will remain only with you. Where and all will it be published to? We'll make a grand celebration. This is on the 10th of December. That's when we plan to publish the results. And it will be done if the situation improves. We will like to have an event, you know, a proper event where all of you can come in. But if the COVID situation is still the same, then we'll do a virtual event. So, okay, in which all countries do we have this index up and running? Vicky, do you want to take that?
Can you repeat that one, please, Richa?
In which all countries do we already have this index up and running, and for how long?
Yeah, sure. So we have Stonewall has a UK index which has been running for 15 years. We've got a global index which is a very top level approach to LGBT equality, which has been running for about 6 years. That does cover all jurisdictions, and it looks at things. So for example, it would look at having a global anti-discrimination policy, and then it would ask you to share examples of how you've applied that in each of the countries that you've worked in. So those are the two main indices that we have, and we're really excited to partner with Keshav Suri Foundation and Pride Circle on this specific India Workplace Equality Index.
Thank you. Thanks, Vicky. So all the slides that you've seen today will be up on our website, workplaceequalityindex.in. Please do visit our website. Also follow us on LinkedIn, where we are continuously putting up updates. Okay, so this is a free index. There is no cost to participation. Like Vicky explained, there is also a free score that you will get, which will be very, very concise, but if in a detailed, then it's priced. And the details of which will be on the website. Yes, everyone, all participating companies will be put in the 3 bands, which is gold, silver, and bronze. Okay, some of our policies like anti-discrimination or supplier diversity are at global level, and we don't have country-specific versions as the global one applies to all countries. Is it okay to submit the global one as part of this survey? Yes, Aritra, as long as it's applying to India, you can submit this. Okay, I'll try and look at questions which are probably have gone up, and we'll scroll down 1 second. What if we cannot provide evidence on any particular segment? Okay, so this question is from Brian. Brian, every question may not require evidence. There will be a guide to every question on how you are supposed to answer it. Somewhere evidence is required, at some places it's not. And we can always, talk when there is a specific question that you're getting stuck at.
I'll just also add, if that's okay, that it's absolutely fine to not have answers to all of the questions, and we wouldn't expect any organisation to, especially in the first year. So we very much just want you to answer as much as you can, and we'll positively score that when we're going through it. So we're looking for opportunities to award you, rather than looking for opportunities to take points away. That's not what we want to do. So answer as much as you can, but it's totally, absolutely fine for you not to have answers to all of the questions at this stage.
Thanks, Vicky. So there is Nikki, who's here from the IV team. She's your one point of contact for all kinds of offline help that you may need. Okay. Are all companies, regardless of size and global reach, bucketed together? So yes, companies with regardless to size and also regardless to origin. When I say origin, I mean Indian companies or multinational companies. The IWEI, the Indian Workplace Equality Index, is made and configured in such a manner that we take these irregularities into account. Okay, so Renuka, if you could expand on your question, then I can have a better understanding. Best practices, what do you mean by that?
Hi, good afternoon. My question was around, this is Renuka,
Okay.
around, you mentioned three band levels as silver, gold.
Yes.
What
Bronze.
kind of, and bronze, right? Yeah. What kind of policies would mark or take a company to the gold band in that particular policy section, right?
Right.
Is there any benchmark that we can base our policies on?
Right. So Renuka, we are going to assess all the companies that participate, and it will be like a bell curve. That is how it will happen. So we don't have that unless you have this, then you will be a gold or a silver or a bronze. So there is no eligibility criteria, so to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so Deshmu, there is a question that we have a global presence. However, would it be fine if only India entity participates in the index? Of course, this is meant for India. So this is the India Workplace Equality Index. We want all companies present in India to participate. So there was a question earlier on, which was, how are we ensuring confidentiality of data information? Is there an NDA in place? Yes, there is an NDA in place, which all of you will be able to sign electronically. It will apply to both parties, that is India Workplace Equality Index and your organization. So previously there was a question, is there a limit to number of people making entries on the questionnaire? Can they simultaneously update different sections at the same time? Yes, they can. This is possible. You'll have a single username and a password for your own company, which you can share with your colleagues. And simultaneously, sections can be filled at the same time. You can keep saving the draft, and final submission is only when you press the submit button. Post participation, can we have a view of the best practices or other organizations? Absolutely. So that is the whole idea. Like Vicky said, we are not going to be policing. Our idea is to celebrate all the good work that companies have been doing, talk about best practices, and definitely at the finals, when the finals are announced on the 10th of December, it will be accompanied by a book, which can be electronic or physical, where we will talk about best practices. We are working on also a model where companies can also raise their hand and say that this is a case study we would like to share. So we will be sharing that information with you very soon. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys, for the questions. I really appreciate it. Okay, one last post participation. Yes, so we've already taken that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Vicky, can you stop the screen share? Is it possible? Yeah, thank you so much. All right, so we've actually finished right on time. Thank you for all of you for coming today. And we had a record participation. At one point, we had 100 participants and many more who wanted to join. Unfortunately, there was a cap, but the recording of this session would be up on the website, as well as different social handles. So all of you can please share it amongst your colleagues and industry friends. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our partners. Nancy, thank you for taking out time, and your presence is really inspiring. Mr. Chenoy, thank you for the guiding light that you've always been right from the beginning. Uma, Bavleen, Jyotiji, thank you for your support always. And of course, Ram and Vicky from Pride Circle, thank you for working with us all through the time. This announcement happened in the month of January, February. And since the whole, all these months, we've been tweaking it, Indianizing it, and it's been a great journey. Thank you, Mr. Suri, for your guidance. And, all of this would not have been possible without your support. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, Rita. Thank you for that. And again, personally, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chenoy, for those lovely words that you said about the LaLiT and KSF. I think I almost got very emotional hearing you say that. And a huge shout out to Umaji and Bavleenji and, Jyotiji for just also being a thing. And a big shout out to you, Richa, for making this possible. And thank you, Nancy. Thank you I can see some of our task force chairs. There's Nipun, who is the chair of the subgroup for empowering people with disabilities. So thank you, Nipun, for joining us. And just thank you, everyone, for your fantastic support on this. And I'm hoping that we get over 200 signups, and that would be, and there are also 200 Indian companies. And that would be really historic. So I'm hoping that happens with this. Thank you so much.